Hi there, you're listening to the Estranged Heart podcast, and I'm your host, Kreed Revere. Welcome back to our returning listeners, and if this is your first time here, thank you for selecting this podcast to listen to. As we begin today's episode, I invite you to grab a cup of coffee or tea, settle in, and listen with an open heart. But first, the regular disclaimer. I am not a licensed therapist or counselor. Nothing within this podcast should be considered or taken as therapy. If you are in need of therapeutic support such as counseling, please seek out a therapist near you. We've arrived at that, what is often described as that dreaded month of the year for estranged moms. And before we dive into today's episode, I want to say just a couple of things regarding the episodes that will come out this month and acknowledge there's pain on both ends, both sides. I've always said that estrangement is two sides of the same coin, that what the parents are going through, the kids are also going through from their own perspectives, right? But the roots are very similar. And the month of May, Mother's Day, is no exception to that. This episode will be for the estranged moms. So if you are an estranged adult child, perhaps this is not the episode for you to listen to. I am not going to censor the things that I discuss in this episode because I have the majority of my listeners are estranged parents. Although I will say estranged adult children, the number of listeners that are estranged adult children is increasing. And it's interesting that when, I started this podcast because I had been an estranged mom. And then later made the aha that, oh yeah, I was also an estranged adult child, although I never titled it as that many, many years ago in my 20s and 30s. And as a result, much of what I talk about on this podcast comes from that perspective of having been an estranged mom. I'm also trying to teach and help moms to see a different perspective. So while I understand, because I have also been an estranged adult child, I understand your desire to hear things for your side, quote unquote. The majority of the things that I talk about here are for estranged moms. I feel like it's something that I can resonate with estranged moms. It's something where the bulk of my own personal growth and work has been around my role as a mom. And for now, this podcast will continue down that path. It's not to say that I don't welcome estranged adult children to listen. I absolutely do. I think both sides need to hear both sides. And I am all about trying to heal self, heal the relationship, and bring people back together, while also recognizing that that cannot happen for everyone. So I just felt called to put that out there because I feel like not a lot, I feel like some of the adult children will say, yeah, but what about us and the pain that we're going through on Mother's Day? And I'm not negating that. I'm not saying that you don't have your own pain. But this episode is about moms and what they experience being estranged from a child or their children on Mother's Day. So, again, for the estranged adult children, this might not be the episode for you to listen to. And I get that. Honor yourself, do what you need to do for you. And I'm hoping that each mother who listens to this will find some support, will find a knowing that they're not alone, and an understanding that the pain you are experiencing as an estranged mom is very real. It's valid, it's painful, and it alters who we are. Now, that being said, we have the option to try to gain a broader perspective, do our own inner healing, and begin to see the pain move from suffering into purpose. So, with that being said, I have just a couple of announcements and reminders, and then we'll move on into today's episode. So, the first reminder and announcement is, again, I've been contacted by several estranged adult children looking for a support group, and I will begin that group in June. If you've already reached out to me, I will um, I will be in contact with you. Um, if you are interested in that, please feel free to email me at theestrangedheart@gmail.com, and I'm happy to send you the information. For moms, if you are looking for a support group, I have a Facebook support group if you're on Facebook, and I also am currently running 2 support groups via Zoom for estranged moms, and those cohorts will end the end of May, first part of June, and then I'll be starting a second cohort in in June as well. So if you are interested in any of those types of support, please reach out. Also, of course, that I do offer the one-to-one coaching, so that stands all the time. That's ongoing. So I'll leave all the contact information in the show notes, and you can reach out to me via email or through the website. And I'm happy to get back in touch with you and give you the information that you're seeking. So, with that being said, on to today's episode. Hi there. It's May. It's the month of Mother's Day. And for those of us who are estranged from our child or children, this is a very difficult time of year. And I want to acknowledge that right off the bat. Your pain is valid. I want you to consider how it might be possible to move through that pain and to move from suffering to purpose. Now, before you come at me with, there can be no purpose for my child cutting me off, I invite you to consider a different perspective. And that is, what if I can turn all of this pain into a purpose for my life, for my healing, for living my life with joy and happiness while also holding grief and sadness as well. I'm not asking you to lay that down. I'm not telling you you need to get rid of it. You're human. You're going to feel it. As I was preparing for today's episode, I know that this is, I see it every year. The number of folks joining my Facebook group increases, the number of coaching clients, the number of moms who reach out who are in dire need of support increases. It's hard. It's difficult. I will never forget that first Mother's Day that I was estranged from my daughters and my grandchildren. That pain lives with me today, and I feel relatively certain it'll be with me until my dying day. Because estrangement is trauma. And our traumas live with us. We can learn how to navigate them. We can learn how to be responsive rather than reactive to our triggers as a result of our traumas. But that was a lived experience that I lived, that you are currently going through, and it's stored in your body. So I'm not going to ask you to be happy, happy, joy, joy, to pretend that nothing's going on. I'm not going to ask you to, go find happiness with those that quote unquote love you. I'm not going to, I'm not going to bullshit you. It's a painful month. It's a painful day. It's a painful weekend. And what makes it seemingly worse is the added piece of the shame that comes with it for moms and dads, for most of us. So we sit in our silence. We don't share in our grief. Others don't acknowledge our grief, whether it's because they don't know what to say, or they don't know what to do, or it's too uncomfortable for them. I don't know. But oftentimes, most of us find ourselves alone, physically and emotionally, around this time of year. And I hope that by listening to this podcast that you'll find and understand and know support, that you're not alone. You are far from alone. um, there are many, 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 many parents, moms who are in your shoes. So my suggestion is to accept the reality of where you're at. Don't fight it. The more we fight it, the more we resist it, the more it persists. It's like the suffering kind of digs in its heels the more that we quote unquote try to pretend it's not there. It's there. Acknowledge it. Sit with the pain. Let it tell you what it needs to tell you. Journal on it. Take a walk in nature. Get away from the commercialization of Mother's Day and get out into Mother Nature and let Mother Nature hold you. through your tears and through your pain. I came across a writing piece that spoke to me in a way that I mean, there's a lot of there's a lot of writing for bereaved mothers who have lost their child or children to death. And there's not a lot of these types of writings in relation to estranged moms. And when I read this piece, I immediately thought, oh my gosh, this is could very easily be adapted to that for estranged moms. So I hope this author doesn't mind that I amended her writing a little bit to reflect that of estranged moms and a little bit of my personal story. I want to give credit where credit is due. This is not my story, meaning the bulk of what was written. It was written by Angela Miller, who is the founder of A Bed for My Heart. And I will leave a link to this writing piece in the show notes for those who may be interested in going and reading it directly from her perspective as a bereaved parent of a child. But I thought that it accurately described what many estranged moms feel on Mother's Day weekend, and I wanted to share this with you. My purpose in sharing it with you is not to make you feel worse, is not to bring additional pain and suffering to you. My purpose in sharing it is for you to know you're not alone. There are other people out there that are feeling what you were feeling, and they are getting through this time of year just like you will get through this time of year. They might have reached out for support groups, for coaching, for, a friend to go on a walk with that can listen and hold space for them. But the fact remains that they get what that absence means, right? Ours comes with an active rejection. So it adds a layer that is not present in bereavement for the most part. So I want to read this. Again, I've made some edits to make it applicable to estranged moms, and I hope that Angela Miller doesn't mind. Nothing nefarious is going on here, and I'm not claiming this writing to be mine. Her words rang true and touched my heart, so I wanted to pass it along. And the title is Still a Mother. Mother's Day can be a wonderful day for many women, a day of celebration, honor, and love. But for those of us who are mothers of adult children who have gone no contact, Mother's Day is often filled with dread, sorrow, and insatiable longing. It's marked by a visceral ache that spills from our heart to the depths of our bones. It's punctuated by an ever present hole in our hearts and our lives so deep and wide that no one and nothing can fill it. Our arms are empty, yet we long for them to be full. We are mothers, but the world often forgets. As estranged mothers, our deepest cry and longing is for our motherhood to be honored and recognized, for all our children to be remembered, honored, celebrated, for someone to yell from the rooftops or to quietly whisper in silence, yes, you are still a mother. Year after year, on this seemingly special day, estranged mothers feel left out. We're left out of the pastor's sermons at church, left out of the montage of flowers and chocolate and Mother's Day well wishes. left out of the conversations and celebrations of motherhood, left out of the Mother's Day messages that flood social media. And we bleed. It's hard being a mother of an estranged child on Mother's Day. By hard, I mean torturous, and even that word falls short. You want someone to step in and offer to carry a piece of your pain for just a minute, an hour, a day, especially on this day. This day that is supposed to honor and celebrate all mothers. You want a shining soul to see you to truly get it for even just 1 second. You want a brave and daring heart to compassionately climb in the ditch with you, lie down beside you, and just be with you, smack in the middle of your whirlpool of Mother's Day tears. The sad truth? There are few who can do this, and even fewer who will. I remember my first Mother's Day after my estrangement from both of my daughters, my only two children. Every cell in my body was dreading the day. The mere thought of Mother's Day filled me with palpable anxiety from the tip of my hair to the way down to my toes. You see, as estranged moms, we know and anticipate the world will forget us. We know. We know because it happens all day, every day in our post estrangement life. Our motherhood denied, ignored, stomped on, crushed, not recognized, honored, or simply stated. We know on Mother's Day the gaping hole in our family tree will go unnoticed. We know important names will be missing from Mother's Day cards. We know it's going to happen, and yet no amount of prepares the broken heart for the excruciating pain of more salt poured in its wounds, even if it's with the best of intentions. It still burns. Knowing our motherhood won't be recognized does not make it 1 ounce more bearable at all. In fact, it makes the anticipation of and the day itself filled with dread. The thought of celebrating Mother's Day feels impossible, surviving it generally the goal, and even that feels like a lofty one. The Mother's Day landmines are too many to count. For some, staying in bed with the covers overhead until the day passes is the most reasonable solution. Having your motherhood ignored on a daily basis is torture, but on Mother's Day, the one day of the year, all mothers should be celebrated, honored, or recognized. There aren't words for the ache, for the pain of being forgotten and rejected, for the dread of knowing you will be. All I wanted my first Mother's Day after my estrangement was simple, for someone to remember I was a mother with a capital M. To have my motherhood acknowledged was the only gift I wanted and needed that year, for anyone to kindly say, yes, you are still a mother. For someone to say, I see you, I love you, you are an amazing mother, even in your imperfections. Unfortunately, that did not happen. The world's message to me was loud and clear. No, you are not a good enough mother. That year, I received one Mother's Day card. One. It came from someone I didn't know well, but let me tell you, that card made my year. It made my life. It made breathing a little easier, a little lighter, every hour of that wretched day, and every day for the rest of the year. Inside the fibers of that paper held hope. I still have that card, and I will always keep it. That one acquaintance decided to step out in bravery and in love to acknowledge what no one else could or would. Not only was I still a mother, but I always would be. Always. It was a message my heart longed for and desperately needed to hear. One I clung to and cling to still. A $3.99 Mother's Day card became my lifeline. It gilded the cracks of my heart with love, with honor, with pride. To be acknowledged as the mother of my precious child still, always, was the gift of all gifts. Someone finally saw me, all of me, and my broken, open heart will never ever forget that. To every courageous, estranged mom with an aching heart and empty arms, I leave you with this. Yes, you are still a mother, and you always, always will be. No one can take that from you. Not today, not on Mother's Day, not ever. You will always be your child's mother. Always. even though you're separated, even if no one remembers, even if the world tells you you're not. So that is that piece by Angela Miller, and I hope that it has touched your heart and reminded you that you are still a mom. Your children have their own things that they're going through, and while they may not recognize you on this Mother's Day, know that this mother does. I remember that pain. And while I don't wish it on anyone, ever, and I would never want to repeat my estrangement, I can tell you that I have turned my pain from suffering into purpose. You can too. And if you would like support in doing so, please feel free to reach out to me. Continue to listen to this podcast. Reach out for the Facebook support group. That's no cost. So that we and myself and others can help you navigate through the pain, moving you from suffering into purpose, because you are still a mom. Until next time. This brings this episode to a close. I hope that this time together was time you feel well spent, and that you are able to find some takeaway nuggets to help you on your journey, wherever you may be on your estrangement and reconciliation path. If you feel you've received something helpful or positive from this podcast, please consider following us, sharing this podcast with others, leaving a positive review, perhaps entertaining becoming a guest on our show, or following us on social media, on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok under the same name, The Estranged Heart. As a reminder, there is an online support group on Facebook. If you are a estranged mom who identifies as being spiritual and approaches estrangement with a sense of curiosity rather than blame and judgment, and desire to do inner self-work and reflection, please seek us out. We can be found at facebook.com/estranged mothers support group. And lastly, if you are an estranged parent or an estranged adult child and would like to have your story shared on the podcast, anonymously or not, please reach out to me via email at theestrangedheart@gmail.com.